The glass slipped before she even realized her fingers had failed her. It shattered across the marble floor, sharp, violent, echoing louder than it should have. Every conversation in the room died instantly. Because it didn't fall in just any place. It fell at his feet. The Mafia boss didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't even look down. But everyone else did. The manager froze, the guards shifted, the air itself felt dangerous. The waitress stood there, breath caught in her throat, knowing one thing. Mistakes like this didn't get forgiven in rooms like these. Then finally, he looked at her. Not angry, not amused. Something else. Something unreadable. And when he spoke, it wasn't what anyone expected. The restaurant didn't feel like a place people came to eat. It felt like a place where decisions were made. Quiet ones. Permanent ones. Soft amber lighting pooled across polished marble floors, reflecting the slow movement of waitstaff who never rushed, never hesitated, never drew attention to themselves. Every table was spaced with deliberate precision, every chair aligned. Even the air carried discipline, cool, controlled, untouched by chaos. Nothing happened here by accident. Ilara Vance understood that within her first hour of working. And she adapted. She moved like the others, measured steps, steady hands, eyes lowered just enough to appear respectful but never blind. She memorized patterns quickly, which tables required silence, which guests preferred invisibility, which ones required awareness. Because some people didn't come here for food. They came to be seen. Or feared. Tonight, the rhythm felt heavier. Subtle but noticeable. The staff didn't speak about it, but they adjusted, slightly tighter posture, quieter steps, sharper attention. Someone important had arrived. Ilara didn't need confirmation. She felt it in the way the manager stood straighter than usual. In the way two men near the entrance didn't eat, didn't drink, only watched. And in the way conversations never fully rose above a murmur. She didn't look directly at him. Not at first. But she knew where he was. Table 13. Center of the room, but somehow separate from it. Like gravity bent around that space. She approached another table, placing a glass of water gently beside a guest's hand. No spill, no sound, no error. Perfect. That's what this place demanded. Perfection. And for nearly 3 hours, she gave it. Until she didn't. The tray felt normal in her hands. Balanced. Predictable. 3 crystal glasses, each filled precisely to the same level. She had carried dozens just like it already tonight. No difference, no complication. But something shifted. Not in the tray. In the room. A subtle disruption, like a ripple passing through still water. One of Viktor Sokolov's men moved. Just slightly. A step to the side, a glance toward the entrance. Nothing obvious, but enough. Ilara's attention flickered. And that was all it took. Her grip adjusted, just barely too late. One glass tilted. For a fraction of a second, it hovered at the edge. Recoverable. Almost. Then it slipped. The sound it made wasn't loud. But it cut through everything. A sharp, crystalline crack against marble, followed by the scatter of fragments sliding outward like shards of ice. Time didn't slow. It stopped. Conversations ended mid-word. Cutlery froze mid-air. Even the music, soft and distant, felt like it had withdrawn from the room entirely. Ilara didn't move. She didn't look down at the glass. Didn't react the way someone would expect. Her breath caught but didn't break. Because she knew. She knew exactly where it had fallen. At his feet. The manager inhaled sharply from across the room. Too sharply. It echoed. And then even that sound died. No one rushed to clean it. No one spoke. Because no one acted before Viktor Sokolov did. And Viktor Sokolov did nothing. He remained seated, one hand resting lightly against the table, fingers relaxed, unmoving. His posture wasn't tense, wasn't irritated. It was still. Deliberately still. He hadn't looked down. Not at the broken glass. Not at the water slowly spreading across the polished floor. His gaze remained forward, as if the incident hadn't earned even that much attention. But the men around him noticed. Their eyes shifted, not to the mess, but to Ilara. Assessing. Measuring. Waiting. Ilara felt it. The weight of their attention pressing in from every direction. She could hear her own heartbeat now. Steady. Controlled. Too controlled. Because fear didn't feel like this. Fear trembled. Fear panicked. This was something else. The manager took a step forward. Then stopped. His instincts were fighting each other. Fix the mistake. Or wait. In this place, choosing wrong mattered. Ilara remained exactly where she stood. Not frozen. Not paralyzed. Still. Intentional. Her hands rested lightly at her sides now, empty tray balanced against her hip. Her shoulders were straight, not stiff, not slouched. She didn't apologize. Didn't rush. Didn't speak. Because something told her. That wasn't what this moment required. Finally, Viktor moved. Not dramatically. Just a slight shift of his head. Enough. His eyes lowered, not to the glass, but to her. The room seemed to tighten, as if the walls themselves were listening. His gaze wasn't sharp. It wasn't soft either. It was precise. Like he wasn't looking at her. He was reading her. And in that silence, something subtle changed. The power in the room didn't surge. It tilted. Just slightly. Ilara met his eyes. Not boldly. Not challengingly. But she didn't look away either. A fraction too steady for someone who had just made a mistake. A fraction too calm. And Viktor noticed. Of course he did. Seconds passed. Too many. Enough to make the manager's pulse spike visibly in his neck. Enough to make one of Viktor's men shift his weight, preparing for something, anything. But Viktor remained where he was. Studying. Calculating. Until finally, he spoke. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Was that an accident? The question landed softly. But it didn't feel soft. It felt precise. Like it had been placed exactly where it needed to be. The manager blinked. Confused. That wasn't the question anyone expected. No anger. No command. No dismissal. A question. Ilara felt the shift immediately. This wasn't about the glass anymore. This was about her. She inhaled slowly. Not to steady herself, but to choose. Her answer came just as measured. No. The word barely rose above a whisper. But in the silence it carried. Across the room. Through every listening ear. A flicker. So small it could have been imagined. But it was. Viktor's expression didn't change. But something in his eyes did. Interest. The manager stiffened again, this time in confusion rather than fear. This had moved beyond his understanding. beyond protocol, beyond rules. Because there were rules for accidents. There were consequences, clear ones. But this wasn't following any pattern he recognized. Viktor leaned back slightly in his chair. Not relaxed, not casual, repositioning, as if adjusting his perspective. Still watching her, still measuring, still deciding something no one else could see. The broken glass remained on the floor, untouched, ignored, because it no longer mattered. What mattered was standing in front of him, unapologetic, unshaken, and for reasons no one else in the room could understand. Unafraid. Viktor's fingers tapped once against the table. A small sound, but deliberate. Interesting, he said quietly. Not to her, not to anyone, just into the space between them. And just like that, the tension didn't break. It deepened. Because now, it wasn't about punishment. It was about curiosity. And in Viktor Sokolov's world, curiosity was far more dangerous. Ilara didn't move, didn't speak again, but something inside her shifted. Because she understood now. The mistake hadn't ended anything. It had started something. Something she wasn't sure she could control. Around them, the restaurant slowly began to breathe again. Softly, cautiously, but nothing returned to normal. Because everyone had seen it, felt it, that moment, that question, that answer. And no one in that room knew why Viktor Sokolov had just chosen not to be angry. But he did. And that meant one thing. He had seen something. Something no one else had. The sound returned first. Not all at once, but carefully. A fork against porcelain, a chair shifting, a breath released too late. The restaurant resumed, but not naturally, not smoothly. It moved like something recovering from impact, testing itself, unsure if it was safe to continue. No one looked at the broken glass, but everyone knew it was still there. Ilara stepped back. One measured step, then another. Not retreating, resetting. A junior staff member finally approached with a cloth and a small tray, movements stiff, eyes lowered. He didn't meet her gaze as he knelt to gather the shards. The manager exhaled, quiet, controlled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He walked toward her quickly, stopping just short of urgency. "What was that?" he whispered, his voice tight behind a forced smile. "Do you understand where you are?" Ilara didn't answer immediately. Her gaze drifted, not toward Viktor, but past him, as if mapping the room instead of reacting to it. "I do," she said calmly. The manager's jaw tightened. That didn't look like it. He glanced briefly toward table 13, then back at her, lowering his voice even further. "You're lucky he said anything at all. Clean this up properly next time, or don't come back." It sounded like a warning. But it wasn't the real one. The real warning was unspoken. "Don't be noticed again." Ilara nodded once. Not submissive. Acknowledging. And then she moved. Not toward the broken glass. Toward her next table. That's when the shift became undeniable. Eyes followed her now. Not openly, but enough. A businessman paused mid-sentence as she passed. A woman at the bar adjusted her posture, watching through the mirror instead of turning directly. Even the pianist, seated in the corner, missed a note. Just one, but it lingered. At table 13, Viktor continued his meeting. A man across from him spoke, something about numbers, shipments, timing, but his words felt disconnected from the space. Because Viktor wasn't fully listening. His gaze didn't return to Ilara. Not directly, but his awareness stayed with her. Measured, dragged, like a thought he hadn't finished yet. She's a problem, one of his men murmured quietly from his left. The question was casual, but the tone was. Viktor didn't respond immediately. His fingers rested lightly against the table again, tapping once, not in impatience, but in rhythm. Processing. No, he said finally. A pause. Then. Not yet. Across the room, Ilara adjusted a napkin at a table that didn't need adjusting. Her movements remained precise, unchanged. But internally, everything had shifted. She could feel it, like standing in a current that hadn't existed a moment ago. The rules had changed. Or maybe they had just been revealed. She picked up another tray. Empty this time. Her grip firm. Deliberate. No hesitation. No repeat of what had just happened. Because whatever Viktor had seen, she couldn't afford to show more. Near the entrance, one of the guards shifted again. Not the same one as before. A different posture. A different tension. His eyes scanned the room, not casually but with purpose. Searching. Ilara noticed. Of course she did. And that was the problem. The restaurant wasn't just controlled. It was layered. What looked like calm on the surface carried something else beneath it. Something moving. Something preparing. Stay away from 13, the manager whispered as he passed her again, pretending to adjust a nearby table setting. Whatever that was, it's done, understood. Ilara didn't look at him. Is it? She asked quietly. He froze for half a second. Just enough to reveal uncertainty. Then he forced a nod. Yes, but it didn't sound convincing. Because it was. At table 13, the conversation shifted. Not in topic. In tone. The man across from Viktor leaned forward slightly. There's been interference, he said, voice low, unplanned. Viktor's eyes flickered. Just briefly. Define. Movement where there shouldn't be any. A pause. Internal. Another pause. Possibly. Silence settled again. Different this time. Heavier. More focused. Viktor leaned back slightly, his gaze drifting, not to Ilara, but to the path she had taken earlier. The exact line. The exact moment. Replaying it. Have you seen her before? The man asked, following Viktor's line of thought without fully understanding it. No, Viktor said. But something in his tone suggested. That wasn't the real answer. Across the room, Ilara reached the bar. She placed the tray down gently, her fingers releasing it with controlled precision. The bartender leaned in slightly. You're still here, he muttered, not unkindly. She glanced at him. Shouldn't I be? He hesitated, then shook his head. No, just. His eyes shifted toward Viktor. Then back. People don't usually get second moments. Ilara absorbed that. Not visibly, but it settled. Another piece of the pattern. Then maybe it wasn't one, she said. The bartender didn't reply, because he didn't understand what she meant. A subtle vibration passed through the room. Not physical, behavioral. The guards near the entrance adjusted again. this time more noticeably. Their attention sharpened. One stepped outside briefly. Another spoke quietly into his sleeve. Ilara noticed that too. And this time, her stillness broke. Not outwardly, but internally. Because this wasn't about her anymore. Or maybe it never was. At table 13, Viktor's gaze shifted once more. Not toward Ilara. Toward the entrance. His expression didn't change. But his focus did. Instantly. Completely. Excuse me, he said calmly, standing. The chair moved without sound. His men followed without hesitation. The meeting unfinished, but abandoned. And just like that, the center of the room shifted again. Ilara stood at the bar, watching without watching, listening without turning. Every sense sharpened now, because whatever had started with a glass was no longer contained to the floor it shattered on. The door opened. Cool air slipped inside. One of the guards stepped back in, leaning toward Viktor, whispering something no one else could hear. Viktor didn't react. Not immediately. But his eyes moved, slowly, deliberately, across the room, until they landed on her. Not questioning this time. Not curious. Certain. And for the first time since the glass shattered, Ilara felt it. Not fear. Not yet. But something closer to it than before. Because now, she wasn't just noticed. She was connected. The sound returned first. Not all at once, but carefully. A fork against porcelain, a chair shifting, a breath released too late. The restaurant resumed, but not naturally, not smoothly. It moved like something recovering from impact, testing itself, unsure if it was safe to continue. No one looked at the broken glass, but everyone knew it was still there. Ilara stepped back. One measured step, then another. Not retreating. Resetting. A junior staff member finally approached with a cloth and a small tray, movements stiff, eyes lowered. He didn't meet her gaze as he knelt to gather the shards. The manager exhaled, quiet, controlled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He walked toward her quickly, stopping just short of urgency. "What was that?" he whispered, his voice tight behind a forced smile. "Do you understand where you are?" Ilara didn't answer immediately. Her gaze drifted, not toward Viktor, but past him, as if mapping the room instead of reacting to it. "I do," she said calmly. The manager's jaw tightened. That didn't look like it. He glanced briefly toward table 13, then back at her, lowering his voice even further. "You're lucky he said anything at all. Clean this up properly next time, or don't come back." It sounded like a warning. But it wasn't the real one. The real warning was unspoken. "Don't be noticed again." Ilara nodded once. Not submissive. Acknowledging. And then she moved. Not toward the broken glass. Toward her next table. That's when the shift became undeniable. Eyes followed her now. Not openly, but enough. A businessman paused mid-sentence as she passed. A woman at the bar adjusted her posture, watching through the mirror instead of turning directly. Even the pianist, seated in the corner, missed a note. Just one, but it lingered. At table 13, Viktor continued his meeting. A man across from him spoke, something about numbers, shipments, timing, but his words felt disconnected from the space. Because Viktor wasn't fully listening. His gaze didn't return to Ilara. Not directly. but his awareness stayed with her. Measured, dragged, like a thought he hadn't finished yet. She's a problem, one of his men murmured quietly from his left. The question was casual, but the tone was. Viktor didn't respond immediately. His fingers rested lightly against the table again, tapping once, not in impatience, but in rhythm. Processing. No, he said finally. A pause. Then. Not yet. Across the room, Ilara adjusted a napkin at a table that didn't need adjusting. Her movements remained precise, unchanged. But internally, everything had shifted. She could feel it, like standing in a current that hadn't existed a moment ago. The rules had changed. Or maybe they had just been revealed. She picked up another tray. Empty this time. Her grip firm. Deliberate. No hesitation. No repeat of what had just happened. Because whatever Viktor had seen, she couldn't afford to show more. Near the entrance, one of the guards shifted again. Not the same one as before. A different posture. A different tension. His eyes scanned the room, not casually but with purpose. Searching. Ilara noticed. Of course she did. And that was the problem. The restaurant wasn't just controlled. It was layered. What looked like calm on the surface carried something else beneath it. Something moving. Something preparing. Stay away from 13, the manager whispered as he passed her again, pretending to adjust a nearby table setting. Whatever that was, it's done, understood. Ilara didn't look at him. Is it? She asked quietly. He froze for half a second, just enough to reveal uncertainty. Then he forced a nod. Yes, but it didn't sound convincing. Because it was. At table 13, the conversation shifted. Not in topic, in tone. The man across from Viktor leaned forward slightly. There's been interference, he said, voice low, unplanned. Viktor's eyes flickered. Just briefly. Define. Movement where there shouldn't be any. A pause. Internal. Another pause. Possibly. Silence settled again. Different this time. Heavier. More focused. Viktor leaned back slightly, his gaze drifting not to Ilara, but to the path she had taken earlier. The exact line. The exact moment. Replaying it. Have you seen her before? The man asked, following Viktor's line of thought without fully understanding it. No, Viktor said. But something in his tone suggested. That wasn't the real answer. Across the room, Ilara reached the bar. She placed the tray down gently, her fingers releasing it with controlled precision. The bartender leaned in slightly. You're still here, he muttered, not unkindly. She glanced at him. Shouldn't I be? He hesitated, then shook his head. No, just. His eyes shifted toward Viktor. Then back. People don't usually get second moments. Ilara absorbed that. Not visibly, but it settled. Another piece of the pattern. Then maybe it wasn't one, she said. The bartender didn't reply, because he didn't understand what she meant. A subtle vibration passed through the room. Not physical, behavioral. The guards near the entrance adjusted again. This time more noticeably. Their attention sharpened. One stepped outside briefly. Another spoke quietly into his sleeve. Ilara noticed that too. And this time, Her stillness broke, not outwardly, but internally, because this wasn't about her anymore. Or maybe it never was. At table 13, Viktor's gaze shifted once more. Not toward Ilara, toward the entrance. His expression didn't change, but his focus did. Instantly, completely. Excuse me, he said calmly, standing. The chair moved without sound. His men followed without hesitation. The meeting unfinished, but abandoned. And just like that, the center of the room shifted again. Ilara stood at the bar, watching without watching, listening without turning. Every sense sharpened now, because whatever had started with a glass was no longer contained to the floor it shattered on. The door opened. Cool air slipped inside. One of the guards stepped back in, leaning toward Viktor, whispering something no one else could hear. Viktor didn't react. Not immediately, but his eyes moved, slowly, deliberately, across the room, until they landed on her. Not questioning this time, not curious, certain. And for the first time since the glass shattered, Ilara felt it. Not fear, not yet, but something closer to it than before. Because now, she wasn't just noticed. She was connected. Viktor Sokolov did not believe in accidents. Not in rooms like this. Not in places designed to eliminate them. As he stepped away from the table, the quiet murmur of the restaurant reshaped itself around his movement. Conversations lowered, eyes dropped, space opened without being asked for. Control didn't need to be enforced here. It was understood. He adjusted the cuff of his sleeve as he walked, his expression unchanged, his pace unhurried. To anyone watching, it might have seemed like a routine interruption. It was. His mind was already reconstructing the moment. Frame by frame. The angle of the tray. The timing of the shift near the entrance. The delay too slight for most to notice between imbalance and release. And most importantly, her reaction, or lack of it. Outside is clear, one of his men said quietly as they reached the corridor near the entrance. Nothing immediate. Viktor didn't respond. He stopped just short of the door, his gaze drifting, not outward but inward. Processing. There was movement, the man added, could be unrelated. Nothing is unrelated, Viktor said calmly. The man fell silent. Because Viktor didn't deal in assumptions. He dealt in patterns. And something tonight had broken one. He turned slightly, his attention shifting back toward the restaurant floor, not physically, but mentally. The image of her stood there, unchanged. Still. Balanced. Wrong. Run her, Viktor said. A simple instruction. But precise. The man beside him nodded immediately. Name. Viktor paused. Not because he didn't know. Because he wanted to confirm it the right way. Waitress, he said, second rotation, dark uniform, no hesitation after impact. The man blinked once. That was enough. He already understood who Viktor meant. I'll have something in minutes. No, Viktor corrected quietly. A beat. Take your time. That was unusual. Speed was power. But Viktor wasn't chasing speed. He was chasing accuracy. Because rushing meant missing details. And tonight, details mattered. Back inside, the restaurant had stabilized again. At least on the surface. Viktor stepped back into the room, and the subtle tension returned with him, like a shadow reclaiming its place. But he didn't return to his seat immediately. Instead, he stopped near the edge of the room, his presence blending just enough to observe without interrupting. And he watched. Ilara moved between tables again. Seamless. Precise. If someone had walked in now, they would never know anything had happened. No hesitation in her step. No tremor in her hands. No visible correction. That was the first problem. People corrected after mistakes. They overcompensated. They became careful. She hadn't. The second problem. She wasn't avoiding him, but she wasn't acknowledging him either. A perfect balance. Too perfect. Viktor's gaze narrowed slightly. Not in suspicion. In focus. She's clean, one of his men said quietly, approaching from behind, on the surface. Viktor didn't turn. Surface isn't where I look. The man hesitated. Records show she started here 2 months ago. References check out, no flags. Before that, a pause. Minimal data. There it was. Not absence. Reduction. Intentional. Viktor finally turned his head slightly, enough to meet his man's eyes. Minimal doesn't exist, he said, only removed. The man nodded slowly. Understanding now. Let's dig deeper, Viktor added, offline. That meant no systems. No digital trails. Only human sources. Only things that couldn't be erased as easily. The man left immediately. Viktor's attention returned to her. Ilara had just placed a dish in front of a guest, her posture relaxed, her expression neutral. She listened briefly, nodded once, and stepped back. Every movement controlled, but not rehearsed. That was important, because rehearsed behavior had tells. Small inconsistencies, micro delays. She didn't have those, which meant, whatever she wasn't pretending. That made her more dangerous. A flicker of movement near the entrance pulled his attention again. Another subtle shift. Different guard this time. Different signal. But the pattern remained. Something was circling this place. And somehow, she was connected to it. Viktor began walking again. Not toward her. Around her. A slow, deliberate path through the room, his presence passing near tables, near staff, near shadows. Collecting. Observing. Confirming. As he passed behind her, Ilara didn't turn. Didn't react. But her breathing changed. Slightly. Barely noticeable. Except to someone who was looking for it. He stopped just beyond her. Close enough to speak. Far enough to avoid a scene. Balance, he said quietly. Not a question. Not a command. A statement. Ilara's hand paused for half a second as she adjusted a glass on a nearby table. Then continued. Smoothly. It matters, Viktor added. A beat. Then she spoke. Only when something tries to disrupt it. Her voice was calm. Measured. But not submissive. Viktor turned his head slightly, just enough to see her profile. Not her eyes. Not yet. And did something try, he asked. This time she stopped. Not fully. Just enough to acknowledge the question. Yes. The word hung there. Simple. But it carried weight. Because it confirmed something he hadn't proven yet. Viktor studied her for a moment longer. Then he stepped away. No escalation, no confrontation, just acceptance. For now. Across the room, the manager watched, confusion etched across his face. This wasn't discipline. This wasn't correction. This was something else entirely. Something he didn't understand. But Viktor did. Because now the pattern was clearer. The glass hadn't fallen because of weakness. It had fallen because of interruption. And she hadn't panicked, because she had already identified it. Which meant one thing. She wasn't reacting to the environment. She was reading it. Viktor returned to his table, finally taking his seat again. The meeting resumed. Voices low, controlled, but his attention remained divided, split between the conversation in front of him and the anomaly moving quietly through his world. Minutes passed, then more. A message arrived, delivered not by phone, by presence. One of his men returned, leaning in slightly. Preliminary check, he murmured. You were right. Viktor didn't look up. Tell me something I don't know. The man hesitated. Then, she didn't just appear 2 years ago. A pause. She replaced someone. That made Viktor's fingers stop. Just for a moment. Explain. The man leaned closer. Same name, different records. Silence. And then, a shift. Subtle, but real. Viktor's gaze lifted. Slowly, deliberately, across the room, until it found her again. Not as a curiosity now, not as a question, as a problem. Because people didn't replace identities unless they were running from something or hiding something. And Viktor Sokolov needed to know which one she was. The city looked different after midnight. Not quieter, just more honest. The polished surfaces faded, the curated lights dimmed. What remained was something colder, streets that didn't pretend, shadows that didn't hide what they were. Ilara walked through it without hesitation. Her pace wasn't hurried, but it wasn't casual either. Every step had direction, every turn had purpose. She didn't check behind her. She didn't need to. The restaurant uniform was gone, folded neatly inside a small, worn bag slung over her shoulder. In its place, something simpler, darker, less noticeable. A jacket that didn't reflect light, shoes that didn't make sound. Clothes chosen not for style, but for function. She turned down a narrower street, one most people avoided at this hour. The flickering street lamp halfway down cast uneven shadows, stretching her silhouette across cracked pavement. She slowed, not because she was tired, because she was listening. A car passed at the far end of the street. Too slow, then accelerated. Gone. Her eyes shifted, not toward it, but to the windows above her. Reflections, distortions, angles. Nothing followed. Nothing obvious. Still, she didn't relax. Ilara reached a modest apartment building, brick, aged, forgettable, the kind of place people passed without seeing. She didn't go inside immediately. Instead, she walked past the entrance. Kept going. Halfway down the block, she stopped briefly at a darkened storefront, pretending to adjust her bag. Her eyes moved across the glass, scanning behind her through reflection. Still nothing. Only then did she return. Unlock. Enter. The hallway smelled faintly of dust and old paint. The lights buzzed softly overhead, casting a dull yellow glow that flattened everything into sameness. Safe. Not because it was secure. Because it wasn't important. Her apartment was on the third floor. She didn't take the elevator. Stairs only. Always. Inside, the space was minimal. Not empty. Intentional. A single table, 2 chairs, a narrow bed against the wall, no decorations, no personal items scattered around. Everything had a place. Everything stayed there. Ilara locked the door. Then locked it again. A second mechanism. Hidden. She stood still for a moment. Listening. The faint hum of the building. A pipe somewhere behind the walls. Footsteps from another apartment, distant, inconsistent. Normal. Only then did she move. The bag dropped gently onto the table. She unzipped it halfway, pulling out the folded uniform. Her fingers paused against the fabric. Not sentimental. Evaluating. Tonight had changed something. Not externally. Not yet. But internally. The balance had shifted. She walked to the sink, turning the water on briefly. Cold. She splashed her face once, letting the sharp temperature pull her fully into the present. No mistakes. That's what she told herself. But that wasn't true. It had been intentional. Not the drop itself, but the moment leading to it. Her eyes lifted slowly, fixing on the small mirror mounted above the sink. She studied her own reflection. Not the surface. The details. Breathing. Eye movement. Tension in her jaw. You waited too long, she murmured softly. The words weren't emotional. They were corrective. Because she had seen it. That shift near the entrance. That ripple. And for a fraction of a second, she chose to observe instead of act. That delay had cost her control. Her fingers tightened slightly against the edge of the sink. Then released. No, not lost. Just exposed. She turned away, crossed the room, and knelt beside the bed. Her hand reached underneath. Not searching. Finding. A small flat case slid out. Matte black. Unmarked. She opened it carefully. Inside. No weapons. No money. Just a collection of items that didn't belong together unless you understood them. A keycard. A folded piece of paper. A thin metallic object no larger than a pen. And a phone. Old model. Modified. Ilara picked up the phone. Hesitated. Then powered it on. The screen flickered once before stabilizing. No notifications. No missed calls. No signals. Good. She placed it back. Untouched. Because silence was better. Silence meant distance. Distance meant safety. But tonight, something had broken that. She stood again, packing once across the room. Then stopped. Viktor Sokolov. His face wasn't what stayed with her. It was his reaction. Or lack of one. He hadn't punished her. Hadn't dismissed her. Hadn't ignored her either. He had asked. That was the problem. People like him didn't ask questions unless they already suspected the answer. And worse, he had seen something. Her hand lifted unconsciously, fingers brushing lightly against her wrist. A habit. A check. There was nothing there. No mark. No visible sign. But she remembered. A room. Different from the restaurant. Colder. Not in temperature. In purpose. Voices. Instructions. Corrections. Again. Her breathing slowed. Controlled. That wasn't now. That wasn't here. She forced the memory back. Locked it where it belonged. But it left something behind. A truth she couldn't ignore anymore. She had been careful. Precise. Invisible. And still, she had been noticed. Ilara walked to the window. Pulled the curtain aside slightly. Just enough to see the street below. Empty. Still. But that didn't mean safe. Her mind replayed the moment again. Not the glass. Not the sound. Him. The way he had looked at her. Not confused. Not curious. Certain. That was new. Her grip tightened on the curtain. Just slightly. If he had recognized something, then it wasn't a matter of if. It was when. A soft creak echoed from the hallway outside her apartment. Ilara froze. Not visibly. Not dramatically. Internally. Everything stopped. Her eyes shifted toward the door. Her breathing slowed further. Almost silent now. Another sound. Closer. A step. Wrong timing. Wrong pattern. No neighbors moved like that. Ilara released the curtain slowly. Silently. Her gaze drifted to the case beneath the bed. Then back to the door. Stillness returned. But this time, it wasn't controlled. It was waiting. And on the other side of that door, someone had just stopped moving. The knock didn't come. That was the first detail Ilara registered. Whoever stood outside her door didn't rush, didn't test the handle, didn't announce themselves. They waited. And that was worse. Ilara didn't move immediately. Her body remained angled toward the window, posture unchanged, as if nothing had shifted. But internally, every calculation accelerated. Distance to the door. 3 steps. Distance to the case beneath the bed. 2. No. 1.5 if she cut the angle. The hallway outside, narrow, limited space, no cover. If it was a neighbor, there would have been hesitation. If it was a threat, there would have been noise. This was neither. Her eyes flicked once toward the clock on the wall. 02:17 a.m. Wrong time for mistakes. The floor creaked again. A shift in weight. Still outside. Still waiting. Ilara exhaled slowly, almost imperceptibly. Then she moved. Not toward the door. Toward the bed. Her hand slid underneath, retrieving the case in one smooth motion. She didn't open it fully, just enough to slide the thin metallic object into her palm. Light. Balanced. Familiar. She straightened. Turned. 3 steps. The handle. She didn't reach for it immediately. Instead, she spoke. Wrong door. Her voice was quiet. Flat. Controlled. Silence answered. Then, a voice. Male. Even. You're difficult to find. Ilara's grip tightened slightly around the object in her hand. Not fear. Recognition of tone. Then you should stop trying, she replied. A pause. Short. Measured. That wouldn't be in your best interest. Not a threat. Not exactly. Her gaze hardened slightly. You don't know my interests. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, I know who's looking for you. That landed. Not visibly, but internally. It struck something. Ilara stepped closer to the door. Not enough to open it. Enough to listen. Then you should also know, she said quietly, that you shouldn't be here. A faint sound followed. Not movement. Not retreat. Something like a breath. Almost amused. I'm not here for you, the voice said. That shifted everything. Ilara's eyes narrowed. Then why? I'm here because he is. Her grip tightened. Just slightly. Who, she asked. But she already knew. The answer came anyway. Viktor Sokolov. Silence filled the space between them. Heavier now. More defined. Ilara didn't speak. Didn't move. Because this wasn't coincidence anymore. How do you know that name? She asked finally. The man on the other side shifted slightly. Just enough to be heard. Because I work for him. That was unexpected. Not the connection. The timing. Ilara's gaze dropped briefly to the handle. Then back up. This wasn't an attack. This was something else. You followed me, she said. No, the man replied calmly. I was already outside. That wasn't better. A quiet realization settled in. Viktor hadn't just noticed her. He had moved. Open the door, the man said. Not forceful, but not optional either. Ilara didn't respond immediately. Her mind ran through possibilities. If it was a trap, there would be more presence. More pressure. This felt contained. Controlled. Like him. She stepped forward. Unlocked the first mechanism. Then the second. The door opened just enough to reveal him. He wasn't imposing. Not physically. Average height, neutral posture, dark coat. But his eyes. Sharp. Observant. The kind of man who didn't miss details. Come in, she said. It wasn't permission. It was acceptance. He stepped inside without hesitation. His gaze moved quickly once across the room. Cataloging. Not judging. Minimal, he noted. Efficient, she corrected. He gave a slight nod, acknowledging the difference. The door closed behind him. Locks re-engaged. Why are you here? Ilara asked. The man didn't sit. Didn't relax. He remained standing just inside the room. Because he made a decision, he said. Her expression didn't change. What decision? A brief pause. Then, he wants to see you again. Ilara's eyes held his. Unblinking. That's not a decision, she said. That's a request. The man shook his head slightly. No, he replied, it's not. The weight of that settled differently. Why, she asked. This time, the man hesitated. Just for a moment. As if choosing how much to say. He doesn't remove problems immediately, he said. He studies them. A beat. And you, he added, are now a variable. Ilara absorbed that. Slowly. So I'm a problem, she said. No, the man replied. A slight shift in his tone. Not yet. The same words. Her gaze flickered. Just for a second. That wasn't coincidence. That was consistency. And if I refuse, she asked. The man met her eyes. Steady. You won't, he said. Not arrogant. Certain. Ilara's fingers relaxed slightly around the object still hidden in her hand. Confident, she said. Informed, he corrected. Silence stretched between them. Because he wasn't wrong. Running now would confirm everything. Staying meant stepping closer to something she had avoided for 2 years. And yet, something else had already changed. Viktor hadn't forced her, hadn't sent men to drag her back, hadn't exposed her. He had asked. Again. Ilara turned slightly, walking toward the table. She placed the metallic object down. Unhidden now. A signal. Not surrender, but choice. When, she asked. Tomorrow night. Same place. Yes. She nodded once. Tell him, she said, I'll be there. The man watched her for a moment longer, as if confirming something, then gave a small nod. Good, he said. He moved toward the door, unlocked it, paused. Without turning, he added, You should be careful. Ilara didn't respond. The door opened, closed. Silence returned. But it wasn't the same silence as before. This one carried weight, direction, momentum. Ilara stood still in the center of the room, her gaze drifting slowly to the mirror again. Not to check herself, to understand. The moment had passed, but the consequence hadn't. Because tomorrow, she wouldn't be invisible anymore. And neither would the truth she had been hiding. And somewhere in the city, Viktor Sokolov was waiting. Not for an answer, for confirmation. The restaurant looked exactly the same. That was the first thing Ilara noticed. Same lighting, same measured quiet, same illusion of control wrapped in polished surfaces and careful distance between tables. Nothing had changed, which meant everything had. She stepped inside without hesitation. No uniform this time. No tray in her hands. No role to hide behind. Just presence. And that alone was enough to shift the room. A few heads turned, not because they recognized her, but because something about her didn't match the rhythm anymore. She didn't move like staff, didn't blend. She didn't belong. Near the entrance, one of Viktor's men watched her. Not stopping her. Not questioning. Just confirming. Table 13, he said quietly, stepping aside. Ilara didn't respond. She already knew. Her steps carried her forward, steady and controlled, but there was no attempt to soften her presence now, no effort to disappear into the background. That phase was over. At the center of the room, he was already there. Viktor Sokolov sat alone this time. No meeting. No distractions. The table was set, but untouched. One glass. One chair across from him. Waiting. He didn't look up immediately as she approached. But he knew. Of course he did. Ilara stopped at the edge of the table. Not sitting. Not speaking. Silence stretched. Familiar now. But different. This wasn't tension built on uncertainty. This was tension built on awareness. Sit, Viktor said finally. No force in the word. No demand. But she understood. Ilara pulled the chair back and sat. Slowly. Deliberately. For a moment, neither of them spoke. He studied her. Openly now. No need to hide it. And she let him. You're early, he said. You're prepared, she replied. A faint shift in his expression. Not amusement. Recognition. Preparation avoids mistakes, he said. Ilara held his gaze. Sometimes, she said quietly, it delays them. A beat passed. Viktor leaned back slightly. His posture relaxed, but not careless. Controlled. You replaced someone, he said. No build-up. No transition. Just truth. Ilara didn't flinch. Didn't look away. Yes. The answer came easily. Too easily for someone cornered. Viktor noticed that. Why, he asked. Ilara's fingers rested lightly against the edge of the table. Still. Measured. Because the original didn't matter, she said. That's rarely true, Viktor replied. It was, she said. Silence settled again. This wasn't interrogation. This was calibration. Viktor's eyes narrowed slightly, not in suspicion, but in focus. You removed records, he said. No, Ilara corrected calmly. They were removed. That distinction mattered. Viktor absorbed it. Filed it. And the identity, he asked. Given, she said. By who? This time. She paused. Not hesitation. Choice. Someone who expected me to stay where I was placed. Viktor leaned forward slightly. Now they were closer. Not physically. Mentally. And you didn't, he said. No. Another simple answer. But it carried weight. Why, he asked again. This time, Ilara's gaze shifted. Not away. Deeper. Because I wasn't meant to stay, she said. That wasn't deflection. It was something else. Viktor studied her carefully. Meaning. Ilara exhaled slowly. Meaning I wasn't placed to serve, she said. A pause. I was placed to observe. The words hung between them. Heavy. Precise. Viktor didn't react immediately. But something changed. Observe what, he asked. Ilara's eyes didn't leave his. People like you. Silence. Not the quiet kind. The kind that presses in. Around them, the restaurant continued its careful rhythm, but it felt distant now, irrelevant. Viktor's fingers tapped once against the table. A small sound, but deliberate. And what have you observed? He asked. Ilara didn't answer right away. Her gaze moved briefly, not around the room, but through it. As if measuring something beyond what was visible. Control, she said. A beat. Pattern, she added. Another beat. And disruption. Viktor's eyes sharpened. That's vague, he said. It's accurate, she replied. Another pause. You saw something that night, he said. Not a question. Yes. What? Ilara leaned back slightly now, matching his earlier posture. Movement that didn't belong, she said. Victor's gaze didn't shift, but his focus did. From who, he asked. Ilara's expression remained calm. I don't know, she said. A lie. No. Victor watched her carefully. You're not telling me everything, he said. That's correct. No denial. No defense. Just truth. That changed the tone again. Most people lied, avoided, deflected. She didn't. She controlled what she revealed, which meant she wasn't afraid of the rest being uncovered. That was dangerous. Someone is looking for you, Viktor said. This time, her stillness shifted, just slightly. Yes. Who? A pause, longer than before. Ilara, Viktor said quietly. A warning, not a threat. Her gaze lifted again. Fully. Marcus Hale, she said. The name landed like a fracture. Viktor didn't move, but internally, everything aligned. The interference, the movement, the pressure building around the edges. It wasn't random. It was targeted. And what does he want? Viktor asked. Ilara's fingers curled slightly against the table. Something I took. Voluntarily, Viktor asked. No. A beat. Then why does he think it's his? Viktor pressed. This time. Her answer didn't come immediately. Because this was the edge. The part she hadn't planned to say. Her voice dropped slightly. Still calm, but heavier. Because he trained me to take it. Silence. That was the truth. Not escape. Not accident. Design. Viktor leaned back again, his gaze never leaving her. You were sent into systems like mine, he said slowly. Yes. To collect. Yes. And you left with something he didn't expect you to keep. Ilara didn't respond. But she didn't need to. The answer was already there. Viktor exhaled slowly. Not frustration. Understanding. You're not hiding, he said. Ilara met his gaze. No. Then what are you doing? He asked. A beat. And for the first time, something shifted in her expression. Not emotion. Not weakness. Clarity. Choosing, she said. The words settled between them. Because that changed everything. This wasn't a victim. This wasn't someone running. This was someone who had stepped out of control and hadn't decided where to stand yet. Viktor's eyes studied her one last time. Then he spoke. Quietly. Precisely. You brought something into my world, he said. Not accusation. Recognition. And now it's coming for you. Ilara didn't deny it. Then you understand the risk, he added. A pause. Yes. Viktor leaned forward slightly. And you still came back. Ilara's gaze didn't waver. Yes. Silence followed. Because now, the question wasn't who she was, or what she carried. It was why. And Viktor Sokolov was about to find out. Then tell me, he said quietly. What exactly did you take? The attack didn't begin with noise. It began with absence. The street outside the restaurant had always been controlled, subtly monitored, quietly secured, invisible layers of protection woven into routine movement. Tonight, there was a gap. One of Viktor's men noticed it first. A blind spot where there shouldn't be one. A camera feed delayed by half a second. A car parked too long in a zone that never allowed stillness. Inside, nothing had changed. Guests spoke in low tones, glasses touched tables without sound, the illusion held. But underneath, something had shifted. Viktor felt it before it was confirmed. He didn't need the report. Patterns didn't break without reason. Ilara, he said quietly. She looked at him. No confusion. No delay. You see it too, he added. A beat. Yes. That was all he needed. Viktor stood. This time without subtlety. The chair moved. The room noticed. His men adjusted instantly. Positions changed. Spacing recalculated. Invisible lines tightened. Clear the outer perimeter, Viktor said calmly. One of them hesitated. Guests. We'll leave, Viktor replied. And just like that, the machine shifted. Within seconds, the staff began getting guests out under the pretense of a temporary issue. No panic, no raised voices. Controlled. Always controlled. But Ilara knew better. This wasn't precaution. This was preparation. She stood as well. Not because she was told. Because staying seated would have been wrong. You should go, Viktor said without looking at her. A test. Ilara didn't move. They're not here for the building, she said. A pause. They're here for me. Viktor turned slightly. I know. That was the difference now. No denial. No avoidance. Just alignment. The last of the guests exited. Doors closed. Locks engaged. Silence fell. Not the soft kind. The kind that presses in before something breaks. Then, it did. A sharp crack echoed from outside. Not loud, but wrong. One of the exterior lights shattered. Glass falling inward this time. A signal. They're testing response, one of Viktor's men said. No, Ilara replied quietly. Her eyes were already on the entrance. They're mapping it. Viktor's gaze shifted to her. That wasn't guesswork. That was knowledge. How many, he asked. Ilara didn't answer immediately. She listened. Not to sound. To rhythm. Not many, she said finally. A beat. But enough. The front door didn't burst open. It unlocked. Clean. Silent. That was worse. The first man stepped inside. Not rushing. Not aggressive. Measured. Dressed like a guest. But his eyes. Too focused. Too aware. Then another. From the side entrance. And another. Three. Not an attack. A retrieval. Viktor didn't move. His men did. Shifting positions, creating space, controlling angles. But Ilara stepped forward. That was unexpected. Stop, Viktor said sharply. She didn't. Because she saw something he hadn't yet. The man closest to the door reached inside his coat. Slow, deliberate. Not for a weapon. For a device. Ilara, Viktor started. Too late. Her body moved before the thought finished. Vast. Not rushed. Not panicked. Precise. She crossed the distance in a blur of controlled motion, intercepting the man just as his hand came out of his coat. Her grip locked onto his wrist. Twisted. The device slipped, caught midair by her other hand. And then she stepped back. Everything froze. Not because of fear. Because of clarity. There was no denying it now. The room had just changed. Completely. The men who entered didn't react immediately. But their posture shifted. Recognition. Still efficient, one of them said quietly. Ilara didn't respond. Her eyes were on the device. Small. Compact. A transmitter. Tracking, she said. More to herself than anyone else. Viktor watched her. Not surprised. Confirmed. You shouldn't have come in, she said to the men. One of them tilted his head slightly. You knew we would. That wasn't a question. Ilara's grip on the device tightened. Not like this. A faint smile touched the man's lips. Then you underestimated him. Marcus. The name didn't need to be spoken. Viktor stepped forward now. Slow. Deliberate. Leave, he said. No threat. A statement. The men didn't move. We're not here for you, one of them replied. I'm aware, Viktor said calmly. A pause. And you're still here. That shifted the air. Because now, this wasn't just about Ilara. It was about territory. The man closest to her glanced briefly at the device in her hand. Give it back, he said. Ilara looked up. No. Simple. Final. That was enough. Everything moved at once. But not how anyone expected. Ilara stepped sideways, not back. Breaking the angle. One of Viktor's men lunged forward. But she was already ahead of him. She knew the pattern. Knew the timing. Because she had been trained for this. Her movement disrupted theirs before it fully formed. A shift in positioning. A break in rhythm. Not fighting. Controlling. And in that moment, everyone saw it. She wasn't reacting. She was anticipating. The man nearest to her froze. Just for a second. Long enough. Viktor's men moved in. Clean. Efficient. The intruders were disarmed. Contained. Silence followed. Heavy. Charged. Ilara stood still in the center of it. The device still in her hand. Her breathing steady. Unchanged. Viktor approached slowly. Not as a protector. As something else. An observer. You didn't tell me everything, he said. Ilara didn't deny it. I told you enough. He stopped in front of her. Close now. That's not the same. A beat. No, she agreed. Around them, the room remained locked in place. No one moved. No one spoke. Because this wasn't about the men who had just entered. It was about what had just been revealed. Victor's gaze held hers. Who trained you? He asked. Ilara didn't look away. You already know. He did. But hearing it mattered. Say it, he said quietly. A pause. Then, Marcus Hale. The name settled. Final. No more ambiguity. No more assumption. Truth. Victor's expression didn't change. But something behind it did. Calculation. Because this wasn't just a situation anymore. It was a conflict. And Ilara's was no longer an unknown variable. She was a key piece. And keys were never left unprotected. Victor's gaze shifted briefly to the device in her hand. Then back to her. You're not hiding, he said. Ilara's fingers tightened slightly. No. Then you're choosing sides. Silence. Not hesitation. Decision. Ilara lifted her chin slightly. No, she said. A beat. I'm choosing control. The words echoed. Because in Victor's world, that meant something very specific. And for the first time, he didn't see her as a risk. Or a problem. But something far more dangerous. An equal force. Outside. Somewhere beyond the walls. Something larger was already moving. And now, there was no hiding from it. The warehouse stood far from the city's polished edges. No lights. No signs. No reason for anyone to be there. Which made it perfect. Victor arrived first. Of course he did. His car stopped just outside the rusted gates, engine cutting into silence that felt older than the building itself. The air carried the scent of metal and dust, untouched by anything recent. Controlled space. Chosen space. Two of his men moved ahead, scanning the perimeter, not searching for danger. Confirming its placement. Inside, the warehouse was vast and empty. Concrete floor, steel beams stretching upward into darkness, shadows collecting in corners where light refused to settle. Every sound echoed. Every movement carried. Perfect for conversation. Victor stepped inside slowly. Measured. His presence alone seemed to define the space. Ilara, he said without turning. She stepped in behind him. No hesitation. No disguise. No illusion anymore. Her movements were the same as always, precise, balanced, but tonight there was no effort to hide what she was. You chose this place, she said quietly. Yes. A pause. He'll expect that. I know. That was the point. Ilara's gaze moved across the structure. Entrances, angles, elevation points. Counting. How many? Victor asked. She didn't answer immediately. Then. Enough to make it look fair, she said. Victor almost smiled. Almost. Fair doesn't interest me. No, she replied. It wouldn't. Silence settled. But it wasn't empty. It was waiting. Minutes passed. Then. Footsteps. Not rushed. Not hidden. Marcus Hale didn't arrive like a threat. He arrived like someone who already owned the outcome. He stepped into the light slowly. Alone. Tall, composed, expression controlled. But his eyes, sharp, focused, locked onto Ilara immediately. Still predictable, he said. His voice carried easily through the open space. Calm, almost familiar. Ilara didn't move. Still late, she replied. A faint smile touched Marcus's lips. Not late, he said. Deliberate. His gaze shifted then. To Viktor. And you must be the reason she stayed. Viktor didn't step forward. Didn't react. I'm the reason you're still standing, he said. No aggression. Just fact. Marcus studied him for a moment. Then nodded slightly. Yes, he said. I've heard about you. And you're still here, Viktor replied. Another small shift in the air. Because now, this wasn't just about Ilara. This was a meeting between two men who didn't tolerate interference. Marcus took another step forward. I'm not here for you, he said. I'm aware, Viktor replied. A pause. Then we understand each other, Marcus said. No, Viktor said calmly. We don't. That ended the illusion of politeness. Marcus's attention returned fully to Ilara. You took something that doesn't belong to you, he said. Ilara's voice didn't change. It was never yours. Marcus's expression tightened just slightly. That's not how this works. No, she said. It's exactly how it works. Silence. Because this wasn't argument. This was truth colliding. Marcus exhaled slowly. You were trained, he said. Built for precision, built for loyalty. A step closer. And yet, here you are. Ilara didn't move. Yes, she said. Why, Marcus asked. That question carried weight. More than anything else he had said. Because it wasn't tactical. It was personal. Ilara held his gaze. You taught me to see patterns, she said. A pause. I saw yours. Marcus's eyes sharpened. And you don't build systems, she said quietly. You consume them. The words echoed. Viktor watched. Not interrupting. Not interfering. This wasn't his moment. Marcus let out a quiet breath. Not anger. Recognition. And you decided to stop me, he asked. No, Ilara replied. A beat. I decided not to be part of it. That landed differently. Because it wasn't rebellion. It was removal. Marcus's gaze flickered briefly. Then settled again. Then give it back, he said. Simple. Final. The air tightened. Because this was the point. Ilara's hand moved slowly. Not defensive. Not aggressive. Reaching into her jacket. Viktor's men shifted slightly behind him. Marcus didn't move. He trusted the moment. Ilara pulled something out. Small. Unassuming. The device. The same one from the restaurant. She held it between her fingers. This, she asked. Marcus's eyes locked onto it. Yes. A pause. Then, Ilara smiled. Just slightly. That's not what you want. The shift was immediate. Marcus's expression didn't change, but something behind it did. Then don't play games, he said quietly. I'm not, she replied. A beat. You trained me to carry it, she said. Her fingers tightened around the device. But you never realized. She took a step forward. I became it. Silent. Heavy. Absolute. Victor's gaze sharpened. Marcus's posture changed. Just slightly. Because now, the truth had surfaced. The thing he was hunting wasn't in her possession. It was her. You memorized it, Marcus said slowly. Ilara didn't deny it. Every system, every code, every structure he had built, stored inside her. Untraceable, unrecoverable, unless she chose to give it back. Marcus exhaled. A long, controlled breath. That was not the plan, he said. No, Ilara agreed. It was. A pause. Then this ends here, Marcus said. Not a threat. A decision. His hand moved. Victor moved faster. Not rushing. Not reacting. Positioning. Between them. Not yet, Victor said. Marcus's gaze shifted. This doesn't involve you. It does now. Silence. Because that was the line. Marcus studied him. Then, a faint smile returned. You're protecting her, he said. Victor didn't respond. But he didn't step aside either. That was answer enough. Marcus's eyes moved between them. Calculating. Reframing. Then, he nodded once. Then understand this, he said quietly. His gaze fixed on Ilara. If I can't take it back. A pause. No one keeps it. The meaning was clear. Total destruction. Not just her. Everything connected to her. Victor didn't move. Ilara didn't flinch. Because now, there was no illusion left. This wasn't about retrieval anymore. This was about control. And control had a cost. Marcus took a step back. Not retreating. Resetting. This isn't over, he said. No emotion. No anger. Just inevitability. Then, he turned. And walked into the darkness. Gone. The warehouse fell silent again. But it wasn't over. Because now, the truth was out. Ilara stood still, the device still in her hand. Victor looked at her. Not as a question. As a realization. You're not leverage, he said. A beat. You're the entire war. Ilara met his gaze. And for the first time, there was no distance between them. Only understanding. And somewhere out there, Marcus Hale was already preparing to burn everything down. The warehouse didn't feel empty after Marcus left. It felt marked, like something had been decided there, even if no one had spoken it aloud. Victor remained where he stood. still between where Marcus had been and where Ilara was. A position that hadn't been planned, but hadn't been accidental either. His men waited, not moving, not speaking, because whatever came next wasn't theirs to influence. Ilara slowly lowered her hand, the device still resting between her fingers. It felt lighter now, meaningless, because the truth had already been revealed. She wasn't carrying anything. She was the thing being hunted. Her gaze drifted across the warehouse, the empty space, the silence. It should have felt like relief. Marcus was gone. The confrontation had ended. But it didn't. Because nothing had ended. Everything had shifted. You should leave, Viktor said. His voice broke the silence cleanly. Not harsh, not distant. Final. Ilara looked at him, not surprised. That's not a suggestion, she said. No, he replied. A pause. It's the only option that keeps this contained. Contained. The word lingered. Ilara took a slow step forward. Then another, closing the distance between them. And if I don't want it contained, she asked quietly. Viktor's gaze didn't waver. Then it spreads, he said. A beat. And everything around it breaks. He wasn't warning her. He was starting a pattern. Ilara studied him. Carefully. You're not trying to control me, she said. No. Another step closer. You're trying to limit the damage. Yes. That honesty settled between them. Heavy. Real. Because he wasn't claiming authority. He was acknowledging consequence. Ilara exhaled slowly. For 2 years, she said, her voice quieter now, I stayed invisible. A pause. No patterns, no signals, no trace. Her fingers curled slightly around the device. And it worked. Viktor didn't interrupt. Until I stepped into your world, she added. That wasn't accusation. It was fact. Viktor tilted his head slightly. You were already being tracked, he said. A beat. I just noticed it first. Ilara held his gaze. And now. The question lingered. Because now. There was no invisibility left. Viktor took a step forward, closing the last of the distance between them. Now, he said quietly, you decide what you are. Silence. Because that wasn't a choice she had been given before. She had been trained, placed, used, but never asked. Ilara's eyes shifted slightly. Not away. Inward. What would you choose? She asked. Viktor didn't answer immediately. He studied her. Not as a threat. Not as an asset. As something undefined. I don't choose for things I don't own, he said. A pause. And I don't try to own things that don't want to be. That was unexpected. Ilara's expression didn't change, but something inside her did. Because that wasn't control. That was restraint. You could hand me over, she said. Viktor's gaze didn't shift. Yes. A beat. It would remove the problem. Simple. Direct. And you won't, she added. He didn't respond immediately. Then, no. That answer carried more weight than anything else he had said. Because it wasn't strategic. It was chosen. Ilara looked at him differently now. Not as a threat. Not as a variable. As something stable. Why, she asked. Viktor's eyes held hers. Because you didn't run. A pause. People like you always run. Another pause. You didn't. That was it. No deeper explanation. No hidden meaning. Just observation. Ilara absorbed it. Because he was right. She could have disappeared. Changed identity again. Vanished into another system. But she hadn't. She had stayed. And that had changed everything. A faint sound echoed from outside the warehouse. Distant. Barely there. One of Viktor's men shifted slightly. Alert. Time was moving again. Marcus wouldn't wait long. You don't have much of it, Viktor said quietly. Ilara nodded. I know. Silence returned. But now, it wasn't uncertain. It was transitional. Ilara looked down at the device in her hand. Turned it once between her fingers. Then, she dropped it. It hit the concrete floor with a soft, final sound. Irrelevant now. I'm not running, she said. Viktor watched her. I know. A pause. Then I need a place to stand. The words were simple. But they meant everything. Because this wasn't about protection. It was about position. Viktor considered her for a long moment. Then, he turned. Not away from her. Forward. Then stand where you can see everything, he said. A beat. And where nothing can approach you unnoticed. Ilara's eyes narrowed slightly. Understanding. That's not safety, she said. No, Viktor replied. It's awareness. A pause. And in my world. He looked back at her. That's the only thing that lasts. Silence settled one final time. Not heavy. Not tense. Clear. The warehouse no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like a beginning. Ilara stepped forward. Not behind him. Not beside him. Aligned. Not controlled. Not owned. Present. And somewhere beyond the city. Marcus Hale was already moving pieces into place. But this time, Ilara wasn't running from it. And Viktor Sokolov wasn't stepping away from it. The game hadn't ended. It had just become visible. And now, there was no one left pretending it wasn't war.